The release of the NBA schedule is often treated as a formality, a list of dates and opponents that eventually fades into the background once the season begins. But for the Boston Celtics, every line in that calendar feels like a coded message. Every stretch of games a glimpse into the challenges and possibilities that will define the journey ahead. When the NBA revealed the full schedule for the 2025 to 2026 season on Thursday, August 14th, Boston fans were reminded once again that the road to greatness is never straight and never easy. Yet, if there is one truth about this franchise, it is that adversity does not diminish its identity, it strengthens it. And the schedule, with all its traps and turning points, is a perfect stage to reveal who this team really is. So what stands out? And more importantly, what does it mean for a team that is chasing more than just wins, but legacy? 5 conclusions rise from the pages of this schedule, and each carries its own weight in shaping the destiny of the Celtics. First, conclusion. The brutal opening stretch, the Celtics will be thrown immediately into a cauldron. 8 games to open the season, 6 of them against teams that either made the playoffs or are on the verge of becoming serious threats. Facing Philadelphia twice, the New York Knicks, Cleveland, Houston, and a New Orleans squad desperate to prove they belong in the upper half of the league, Boston does not have the luxury of easing into rhythm. This is not about numbers on paper. It is about mentality. How does a contender announce itself to the league? By surviving storms before the skies even clear. A slow start could shake external perception, but internally it could galvanize the locker room. Imagine a 3-5 start. Critics circling at within the building, the players realizing that every possession counts, that every mistake in October echoes in May. Sometimes the schedule tests not your talent, but your resilience. And this opening run does exactly that. Second conclusion. The defining month-long gauntlet from December 26th through January 26th, the Celtics will step into a stretch that feels almost designed by fate. 17 games in 31 days, long trips west. A brief return home to face opponents that punish any lapse, then straight back on the road. Pacers, Blazers, Jazz, Kings, Clippers, Bulls, Heat, Raptors. By the time the calendar flips into late January, we will know whether Joe Mazzulla has discovered his core rotation, whether the experiments are over and the true version of this team is ready to emerge. The beauty of such a condensed run is that it leaves no room for illusions. You either adapt, adjust, and harden your style, or you reveal cracks that others can exploit. For a Celtics team with championship intentions, this month will not just shape their record, it will sculpt their identity. Third conclusion. The Anfernee Simons showcase window in modern NBA strategy, development and trades intertwine. Last season, Boston carefully highlighted Jaden Springer to raise his value before the deadline. This time, all eyes turned to Anfernee Simons. Between January 30th and the trade cutoff, the Celtics face Sacramento, Milwaukee, Dallas, and Houston. 3 of them playoff locks and 2 of them contenders. It is the perfect stage to amplify Simons' scoring abilities. A string of big nights against opponents with high defensive reputations could skyrocket his value and give Brad Stevens the leverage to flip an expiring contract into future-building assets. But here lies the intrigue. What if Simons not only showcases value but actually integrates seamlessly, creating an offensive punch too valuable to part with? The schedule sets up a choice, and choices define front offices. Fourth conclusion. The merciless West Coast swing. Every season has its crucible. For Boston, it comes between February 19th and February 25th. A journey through San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Denver. Warriors, Lakers, Suns, Nuggets, each arena with its own ghosts, each opponent with its own ambition. 4 games in 7 nights against 3 legitimate title hopefuls. Realistically, a split would be a triumph, a 1-3 record acceptable, and 0-4 outcome a sobering reminder of how high the mountain truly is. Yet imagine stealing a win in Los Angeles. Marcus Smart on the opposite bench, the Garden faithful watching from afar. The symbolism would outweigh the standings. This swing has always been less about record and more about readiness. Do the Celtics have the composure, the endurance, the toughness to match champions in their own homes? The answer to that question will echo into spring. Fifth conclusion. The depth exam seasons are not defined only by stars, but by the unsung, the bench units that carry the load when legs grow heavy. The schedule gives Boston 3 brutal tests of depth. The first from late December into late January, the second in March with 6 games in 12 days, and the third to close the season in April with 6 games in another 12-day span. These Windows are not mere scheduling quirks. They are controlled stress tests, opportunities to see whether the reserves can maintain pace, whether rotations can stretch without snapping. Championship teams are built not only on star talent, but on trust across the roster. Every injury, every rest night, every back-to-back will force Mazzulla to lean deeper. And it is within those minutes that hidden strengths or alarming weaknesses can surface. So what do these conclusions ultimately reveal? That the Celtics' journey is neither simple nor predictable, but laced with hidden opportunities. A harsh start can build steel. A demanding January can forge chemistry. A trade showcase can alter the roster's trajectory. A Western gauntlet can harden confidence. And depth trials can uncover the reserves of strength needed in May and June. Schedule is not an obstacle, it is a mirror. For Boston, that reflection could show a team tested, sharpened, and prepared to chase glory once more. The Boston Celtics entered this offseason with decisions that will echo far beyond the upcoming campaign. Choices that not only reshaped their own roster, but also altered the balance of power in the Eastern Conference in ways that few could have predicted. At first glance, it looked like a simple recalibration, a temporary pause forced by circumstances, yet beneath the surface, it might have planted seeds that will transform the competitive landscape over the next 2 years, with Jayson Tatum set to miss the entire 2025 to 2026 season, recovering from a torn Achilles tendon. The Celtics front office faced a crossroad. Rather than patching holes or pretending that a championship chase was still within reach, Brad Stevens orchestrated bold moves immediately after the Oklahoma City Thunder lifted the Larry O'Brien Trophy in June. Within days, Boston sent Jrue Holiday to another franchise and redirected Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta, moves that were initially explained as part of financial strategy, a way to manage contracts and secure long-term flexibility. But the true impact of those trades cannot be measured in salary cap tables alone. What makes this story electrifying is how Boston's restructuring inadvertently created a new dynamic in the East. The Atlanta Hawks, once dismissed as a team stuck in transition, suddenly found themselves with the kind of frontcourt anchor they have lacked for years. Porzingis, when healthy, combines offensive versatility with rim protection that can shift the geometry of the game, and pairing him with Trae Young and Jalen Johnson offers Atlanta a different dimension. Add the arrival of Nickel Alexander-Walker, and suddenly the Hawks no longer look like a team fighting for the play-in, but rather a group capable of climbing into the upper tier. This is where the curiosity deepens. Did Boston, in trying to preserve its own future, actually accelerate the growth of a rival that could be waiting when the Celtics are back at full strength? Imagine the scene 2 years from now, in 2027. Tatum returns, Jaylen Brown enters his prime, the Celtics reload with depth and discipline. But on the opposite side stands an Atlanta squad sharpened by 2 full seasons of development, with Porzingis as a centerpiece. The very player Boston moved for strategic reasons could be the one contesting them in critical playoff battles. And yet, for Celtics fans, this is not a reason to despair, but to anticipate, because the brilliance of Stevens' approach lies in timing. By stepping back in a season when championship odds were already dimmed, Boston avoids the trap of chasing short-term illusions. They allow their star to recover without pressure. They clear financial space that could become decisive when the cap rises, and they test the resilience of the supporting cast under new conditions. Every setback becomes a rehearsal for the moment. When the team is whole again, meanwhile, the Eastern Conference itself becomes more intriguing. The Hawks may surge, but that only raises the stakes for Boston's eventual return. Rivalries are not forged in easy paths, but in collisions of equal power. And the Celtics, when Tatum walks back onto the parquet, will face an East that is more dangerous, more competitive, and therefore more rewarding to conquer. The question lingers, and it is the kind of question that keeps fans awake at night. Did Boston unintentionally empower its future rival? Or did it set the stage for a storyline where redemption becomes even sweeter? The answer will only be revealed when the calendar turns to 2027 and the Celtics, restored and reloaded, meet the very challenge they helped create. What is certain now is that Boston has not disappeared from the map. They have merely shifted the timeline, trading immediate battles for long-term dominance. For a franchise built on 17 championships and generations of resilience, that kind of patience is not weakness but strategy, not retreat but recalibration. The East may buzz with new contenders, but every move the Celtics made this summer was designed with a singular vision: to rise again, stronger, smarter, and ready to reclaim what they believe is theirs. Did you feel it? That hollow silence after the news hit? The kind that pulls the air out of a room and leaves you staring at nothing, searching for an explanation that refuses to come. It was not just a playoff loss, not just another disappointment, to add to the long ledger of heartbreaks that define professional sports. No, this was something heavier, a brutal twist that shattered the illusion of certainty. Jayson Tatum, the axis around which the Boston Celtics universe spins, collapsed on the hardwood as his Achilles gave way, and with that single moment, the direction of the entire franchise was violently altered. It was not merely an injury, it was a fracture in time, and then came the dismantling. Not the kind of loud demolition you see in dramatic blockbuster endings, but a cold, calculated unbuilding. The roster that had been engineered to chase titles was pulled apart piece by piece. Drew Holiday, gone. Kristaps Porzingis moved, the veteran heartbeat Al Horford walking away. What was left was not rubble, but a stripped foundation, deliberate and strategic. Fans asked why, analysts demanded explanations, but the truth was more unsettling. This was not panic, this was strategy. The front office faced a reality that is more punishing than any opponent on the court. The second apron, that ominous financial wall introduced by the league, loomed like a guillotine. Exceed it, and flexibility dies. Ignore it, and the ability to reshape the roster around a healthy Tatum evaporates for years. Brad Stevens looked at the calendar, at the numbers, and chose survival. It was not about 2025 to 2026 anymore, it was about building the conditions for dominance in the years beyond. That is where the story takes its sharpest turn, because out of the ashes of those painful moves emerged an unexpected figure, one whose presence carries both promise and uncertainty. Anfernee Simons, a guard with a reputation for explosive scoring, a player who once seemed destined to be Portland's answer for the future, now dropped into Boston almost by accident, the byproduct of a larger chess move. His arrival was never meant to be the headline, but here we are, staring at him as one of the most intriguing variables in this entire equation. The mystery around Simons is not just about his skill set, which is undeniable. It is about time. He is on the verge of free agency, his current deal worth $27 million for this season, and every decision about him becomes magnified by that ticking clock. Does Boston commit to him as a long-term partner in this rebuild, reshaping? The offense to feature his scoring alongside a rejuvenated Tatum, or do they use him as leverage, a valuable asset to flip for different building blocks? Neither path is simple, and neither comes without risk. Picture the possibilities if he stays. A healthy Jayson Tatum drawing defenses like a magnet, while Simons carves through the gaps, capable of putting up 20 points on any given night. A tandem that forces opponents into impossible choices. Either double Tatum and leave Simons free, or respect Simons and give Tatum the breathing room he thrives on. That kind of offensive pressure could redefine the Celtics' identity, adding a layer of unpredictability they have sometimes lacked. But here comes the shadow that refuses to be ignored. The financial landscape is not forgiving. $27 million for Simons is not pocket change. It is a commitment that weighs heavily under the second apron rules. If he demands a raise in free agency, if he chases the richest contract possible, Boston will be forced into a decision that cuts to the bone. Do they stretch their resources to keep him, potentially limiting future flexibility, or do they hold the line and risk losing him for nothing? This is not a minor subplot. It is a high-stakes gamble that will ripple across every decision made. Over the next year, fans are left to wonder, is Simons a temporary passenger on this ride? Or is he the piece that transforms into a cornerstone when Tatum returns? The question lingers unanswered, and that is precisely where the intrigue lies. Look deeper, and you realize this is more than one player's future. It is a referendum on the long-term vision of Brad Stevens. He chose to strip down a contending roster not because he wanted to lose, but because he wanted to protect the chance of winning again at the highest level. He placed a bet not on today, but on tomorrow. That choice demands patience, and patience is the hardest currency to spend. When a fan base craves banners and parades, so what happens next? What if Jayson Tatum returns stronger than ever, fueled by the kind of hunger that only comes from staring down mortality in a career? What if Simons accepts a deal that values winning over raw dollars, embedding himself into a system that amplifies his gifts? What if the flexibility created by these painful moves allows Boston to swing one more deal, one more acquisition that changes the balance of power in the league? These are not guarantees, but they are possibilities. And possibilities are the lifeblood of hope. The 2025 to 2026 season may not be about raising a banner, but it might become the most critical chapter in ensuring that banners keep coming. Every decision about Simons Every update on Tatum's recovery, every maneuver in free agency will be scrutinized, debated, and weighed. And through that tension comes the most powerful thing sports can offer: suspense. The Celtics are not lost. They are navigating a storm with eyes locked on the horizon. The world outside may see uncertainty, but inside there is calculation, discipline, and above all, belief. This team has rewritten its destiny before, and the path they are walking now could lead to an even greater reward. The only question that remains is whether Simons will be part of it, or whether his chapter in green will end before it truly begins. That, Celtics Nation, is the unknown that makes the future so thrilling.